Hello and welcome. Welcome to Everything is Energy and welcome to the Aquarius full moon, which is exact on July 29th, 2026 at 7:35 a.m. Pacific time. This full moon is features Luna herself at 6 degrees Aquarius, and she's, as with every full moon, directly opposing the sun at 6 degrees of Leo. And, when the sun and the moon stand opposite each other, there's this opportunity for the illumination of a certain type of polarity or a moment of revelation. And we'll get to what some of those themes might be. But I want to just say this moon feels especially significant. And it's not just because it sits on the Aquarius Leo axis. It's it's because it's because a couple things. It's activating one of the most important long-term configurations we've been following all year, and that is the great conversation between Neptune and Pluto and Uranus, and that became exact as it's going to be this week, a few days before the full. It's highly conjunct Pluto. And if we think about what was going on with Pluto, if you remember back, Pluto moving into Aquarius was the first of all the outer planets that kicked off this collective transformation, revolution, reorganization, whatever you want to call it. And that event was actually complete in November last year. But Pluto and Aquarius moving very slowly to have this full moon be conjunct this Pluto is really just saying that Pluto's absolutely stepping into the conversation of illumination. And I'll get to a little bit more of the details about that. Um, so let's first just sit with the moon in Aquarius. Let's start with the basics and let's build a couple layers up. Aquarius is fixed masculine air ruled by Uranus. Aquarius loves freedom of expression. It it governs community and innovation and shared systems and is absolutely a sign about the future. And Pluto entering into Aquarius, I've said before, is really kind of ushering us out of the top-down power structures into circular power structures. But when we look at what the moon represents, the moon is our emotional body. The moon is our instincts, our subconscious, our memory. And, the full moon is asking, how are we participating in this future that is emerging? And I mentioned that the moon is tightly conjunct Pluto. Pluto is the planet of death and rebirth and transformation. But Pluto is also about the unconscious and power structures and really a much higher order of evolution. Pluto essentially just strips away things that no longer serve life. And, I mentioned in Aquarius, Pluto's transforming our communities, it's transforming our systems, it's transforming our understanding of power itself. So to have the moon join Pluto at this full moon, and I will also say this is the last lunation before eclipse season, and I'll do a whole special on that in the future. But, the moon conjunct Pluto is gonna give the energetic opportunity for things that are hidden beneath our awareness to surface. So that's compounded now, right? Because full moons are illumination opportunities. But now we have the moon conjunct Pluto, which is absolutely going to the depths. This is rarely something superficial. There's something deeper here, I would say, that really wants to be acknowledged around the time of this full moon. And the moon is also conjunct Juno along with Pluto. And Juno is the Roman queen of heaven, and she represents agreements and partnership and shared purpose and commitment. And I think having her conjunct the moon and Pluto, she's kind of inviting this remembering that we always exist in relationship. And with Pluto, it's kind of this opportunity. Pluto is retrograde. I guess I should also say that, Pluto, Pluto stationed or went into Aquarius on November 19th last year, and it's going to be in Aquarius for the next roughly 20 years. But Pluto has been retrograde since May, and it will be retrograde until the middle of October. And so when we compound or add the layer of the energetic of Pluto, inviting us to revise and review, conjunct Juno, this is about our relationships and our partnerships, and maybe even the contracts and agreements that we've made. And when Pluto is conjunct Juno, there's the opportunity for us to review and revise and figure out what works and what doesn't. So old agreements might dissolve and new forms of collaboration will absolutely emerge to take their place. We also still have Altair active. Altair is part of the constellation Aquila, the eagle. It's one of the brightest stars in our night sky. And if we think about the eagle, Altair is reminding us of the bigger perspective, the higher perspective, this sense of big picture vision and courage and swift movement. And, historically, Altair's been associated with leadership, specifically leadership that is capable of seeing beyond immediate circumstances. And so with the moon here, there's this extra addition of this notion of emotional intelligence and intuition. And in terms of leadership, I think it's inviting us to take a bigger picture vision and not just delegate leadership to those who we've been told are quote unquote leaders, but to be the leaders, to be the change, to harness the power of our consciousness and our vibration, and to use our emotional intelligence and our intuition to rise above the fear and truly become the visionary. And so I kind of want to just add the layer that this is, as much as this might feel like it's about the external world, we are the microcosm to the macrocosm, and we change first, and then the world changes. So opposing all of this that's happening in Aquarius, we have the sun conjunct Jupiter in the sign of Leo, and the sun shines in Leo. The sun is always about our identity and our life force and our conscious awareness and our purpose. And Leo is a heart-centered sign. It's creative, it's courageous, it's joyful, it's loving, it's about authentic expression. And when the sun joins Jupiter, Jupiter expands everything that it touches. So everything's becoming larger. Hope is expanding, confidence is expanding, meaning is expanding. And it's interesting because if all those planets in Pluto are kind of inviting us to be the change and to be the leaders, then, this conjunction of the sun and Jupiter and Leo is also reminding us that the future is not only something that we build, but it's something that we inspire. And so there's this heartfelt authenticity that has the potential to be activated during this full moon. And if we just for a second look at the energetic I mentioned it seems like whenever there's a full moon, the sun and the moon are in opposition to each other, right? So we have the Aquarius Leo opposition. And if Leo's asking, how can we authentically express ourselves? Aquarius wants to add that, we also need to bring our authentic self to contribute to humanity. And, the full moon is reminding us that neither of those notions are complete without the other. So, our individual brilliance and our individual light is so necessary, but so is the collective contribution. And, Leo wants us to remember to be in our heart and shine brightly. And Aquarius wants us to rise up and think outside the box and become a part of the community of shared humanity. And so I want to shift gears here a little bit and move into this minor triangle that I mentioned at the top. I believe this aspect carries potentially one of the deepest significant aspects of this lunation, because I've been talking about this for a while and I will continue to mention it for as long as it's operational, because it's absolutely outstanding that while the world is going through this tremendous time of transformation, we have Pluto and Neptune and Uranus sextiling and trining each other, and they're in smooth communication. And it's been roughly about a week since they all came at different points in time over the course of about a week and a half. They hit the exact note of their trine and their sextile, which means that there is a refinement of their offering. And so if Pluto in Aquarius is offering transformation, Neptune in Aries is offering us the dream of what's becoming. It's inspiring our imagination and our vision. And Uranus in Gemini is liberating our mental being. It's liberating our thoughts. And it's bringing this lightning bolt of awakening, reminding us that we are the change. We are the high technology. And so since, in this chart, they're almost perfectly harmonized here. They're at the exact same degree. They're at 4 degrees. They're just basically barely minutes apart from a truly exact conjunction during this full moon. And, I think that this is potentially the backbone of this era of emerging that we're living through, because I think we can feel that, yes, transformation is afoot. And we can also feel that even though it's a little bit unnerving, we kind of need it. And we're probably also ready for it, right? And we also need the vision and the dreams and the awakening and the working together. And now I just want to remind us that this full moon is directly activating Pluto. And so this also means that the moon is a part of this conversation with this exact minor triangle at this juncture. So not only is this minor triangle about as exact as it's ever going to get, the full moon is jumping into the conversation. And this means that humanity itself is beginning to experience what these planets have quietly been constructing. They've been working in subtle energy. And subtle energy is absolutely so powerful, but it often evades us as we're in this physical world. We can almost be confined by the physicality of it. If I can't see it, it doesn't exist, is something very human to say, right? But if all these outer planets have been working in subtle energy, and they will continue to do so. But this full moon, this particular full moon, right before what I will say is going to be a pretty transformational eclipse season in August, the moon is bringing it into the physical. So this is no longer abstract. This is no longer just something out there. This is bringing it this is making it personal. And so I think that's a pretty exciting time to maybe look at what the illuminations are, what the new downloads are, what the realizations are. And let's remember that, like, this is the apex of the lunar cycle in many senses, and that the next 2 weeks after the full moon is about, celebrating what's been manifested and letting go and releasing and refining to prepare for the next lunar cycle. And let's put a pin in the next lunar cycle is absolutely powerful. So I wanna also mention something that I've mentioned before because it's still operational. Uranus remains tightly conjunct to Sedna, and Sedna descends into the depths and she's transformed through surrender. And she represents deep unconscious wisdom and ecological awareness and ancestral memory and things that have long been beneath the surface or buried. So, Uranus and Sedna are continuing. So Sedna's operational in this minor triangle as it's becoming exact, as well as the reason why I'm bringing this up. So this is a really potent moment in time for us. The Uranus and Sedna are continuing to awaken these truths that have remained forgotten or hidden or buried for generations. We have a second minor triangle here as well. And this second minor triangle is bringing together the Sun and Jupiter, which are conjunct in Leo, and then Neptune and Aries, as well as Uranus and Sedna. And I think there's something really remarkable about having another minor triangle because I think of these charts, when you look at an astrology chart, it's almost to me, if you've ever done any kind of painting or watercolor painting, there's these swaths of color that you can wash over a, a canvas, and every swath of color impacts the energy of what's being received and perceived. So this second minor triangle is another important energetic layer. But if we think about the first minor triangle as emphasizing our collective evolution, as I was talking about, I think this second one is emphasizing personal participation because of the Sun and Jupiter. Because, that's about in Leo, right? The heart. But we also have Uranus and Sedna and Neptune, which are, awakening and vision and working together. And it almost feels like here we are again on the Leo Aquarius axis, that Leo's ambulance and its warmth and its heart-centeredness is able to feed Aquarius's innovation and, want for not revolution for its own sake, but fighting for a cause that feels very personal and very real. And speaking of getting personal, I want to shift here to where the chart absolutely does get more personal. We have Venus in Virgo squaring Mars in Gemini. And, Venus is, some astrologers will tell you, holds divine feminine energy where Mars holds divine masculine. But Venus is the planet of love and beauty and relationship and values. And in Virgo, she's about those small acts of service and devotion and healing, which I've mentioned before. You know, Mars in Gemini is Mars is always action and initiative and courage. Gemini is curiosity and ideas. And the squares are challenges, but they're opportunities. You know, can our actions reflect our values? Can our communication remain loving and heart-centered? Can our ability to discern coexist with curiosity? And I think there's something there for us because there's so much information in the world, and there will continue to be so much information. And one of the things that we're being upgraded and invited to do during this year and into the future is to be able to read energy clearly and understand how things feel for us and what is true and what resonates and what do we want to create, right? But there's also this tendency to want to, I think for humanity, if we're a little bit nervous about change and what's afoot, we almost kind of want to get it done ASAP. And we want to be the one that's on the right side of history. We want to be the one that knows what's up, right? And Mars and Gemini is inviting us to be curious at the same time, I think, in terms of a stronger energetic option. So we can take action, but it's important to remain flexible. It's important to remain, let's remember, Gemini doesn't want to sit on the couch at the party and talk to its own clique of friends. It wants to talk to the whole room. It wants to walk in everybody's shoes. And I think there's some medicine for us there. And we also have Mars conjunct Rigel. Mars is conjunct both Rigel and Capella and Ceres, but let's talk about Rigel for a second because Rigel is one of the brightest stars in the constellation of Orion. And Rigel symbolizes skill and knowledge and as well as wisdom and teaching and achievement. And the cool thing about this is that Rigel has the potential to really amplify Mars's capacity to act with competence and with precision. And so instead of just reactionary action for the sake of blowing off steam, Rigel's here with a more, again, kind of higher vision offering. And if we take the other layer, that Mars is also aligned with Capella. Capella brings intelligence and guidance and curiosity and inventiveness. And so now this is also just inviting Mars to not simply act through force or through reaction, but instead through wisdom and through learning and through seeking truth. Which brings us to the final celestial body that's a part of this square, and that's Ceres. Ceres governs agriculture and cycles of time and nourishment. And if we think about the myth of Persephone and Ceres, depending on whether you're talking about Greek or Roman mythology, the Demeter or Ceres she's in charge of the cycles and the seasons. And so, Mars with Ceres is really inviting us to consider, what are we actively cultivating? What seeds are we actually planting, and what are we nourishing? And to be very much aware of how we're doing that in this world, and to become more aware of it. How do we protect what nourishes life? We have another square in this chart, and this is the last square. We have Mercury squaring Saturn. And where Mercury represents our 3D world communication, absolutely, language, learning, thinking. Saturn is about discipline and boundaries and responsibility. And I like to think of Saturn as the planet of karma. And even if Saturn does slow us down or box us in a little bit, it's for the long term and for the stability of the things that we're wanting to build. So this square has the potential to slow the mental field, and it's inviting thoughtful communication. It's inviting us to become even more aware of the things that we say, of the ways that we're listening, and of the ways that we might not be listening if we're projecting. And really, there's this sense of patient understanding here. And Mercury is not alone in this square. Mercury is conjunct Sirius and Castor. Sirius was one of the most, if not the most important star to the Egyptians. Sirius was associated with the inundation of the Nile. It's what powered their pyramids when the floodwaters came through the aquifers beneath the pyramids. They dedicated one of the star shafts in the king's chambers to be able to connect with Sirius during the specific heliacal rising that it did every year. And when we think about Mercury conjunct Sirius, this is elevating Sirius to its beyond its mundane, beyond whether or not my cell phone needs to be rebooted during a retrograde, right? This is about vibrational and energetic communication. This is also about light codes. This is about receiving, really being open to receive the energy and the downloads that are available to us during this lunation. So I would offer there's this energy of divine timing, and for us to really understand that messages matter and that words matter and that communication matters, but also that our consciousness matters, and the things that we spend our time thinking about, looking at, writing about, those are absolutely up for the higher octave of how we can broadcast the signal out into the world for who we are and what we are creating. And I also just want to say that Mercury is conjunct as well to Castor. And if you've heard me talk before about the myth of Castor and Pollux, they are brothers, and they are, some would say twins, but whether or not they're twins, one of them is mortal and one of them is immortal. And I won't get too far into the story, but I just want to let you know here that Castor's the mortal one. And so this means energetically that this is about what's going on in our world with our feet on the earth and our eyes looking at the world around us. And, it's reminding us that here, conjunct Mercury, that wisdom can emerge through dialogue and relationship, and also through holding multiple perspectives simultaneously. And so I would say that this Mercury square Saturn with these extra conjunctions is not asking us simply to speak. It's inviting us to speak wisely. And if you've ever studied communication, there's plenty of negotiation experts that will say that the most influential person in the room or at a meeting isn't the person that's talking the most. Take that or leave that. But I think there's something to be said for us to be mindful and intentional about our contribution and about the words we use, the vibrations we offer. So before I get to the meditation, I just kind of want to sum up that this Aquarius moon feels kind of like an arrival. Because over the past several months, we've watched, Neptune begin a new cycle, Uranus entered Gemini. I mentioned back in November, Pluto went into Aquarius, Saturn entered Aries, Pluto kicked it off. So again, let's remember we're kind of coming to a full circle moment here because Pluto was the one that started this whole 3D world shakedown and upgrade. And so now everybody else, all the other outer planets have shifted, and here comes Pluto again, back on this full moon in Aquarius with this minor triangle that is as potent as it's ever going to get right ahead of eclipse season. And so, there's this sense that potentially something we've been preparing for all year is becoming visible. But I also want to say perhaps not fully visible, but enough to recognize that something's shifting. If we think about the seeds that have been planted, maybe not all the seeds have popped their little seed heads up yet, but maybe a few of them have, enough for us to realize, oh, all right. I think about, myself as a farmer and a seed saver. Oh, those seeds, they're germinating. Success. Doesn't mean that the whole picture is anywhere near being done, but there's this kind of deeper understanding of the direction in which we're being invited to head. So before we shift into the meditation for today's episode, I'd love to share something I'm especially excited about. I've mentioned it already, the eclipse season that's coming in August. And I'm going to be offering Rituals of the Eclipse, which is a free two-part herbal gathering with Lincoln's Heritage Rose. And together, if you want to join me, it's a free offering. We're going to explore the astrology of the eclipses, and we're going to look at how potentially the astrology of the eclipses impacts us personally. We're also going to create our own ritual incense. And I think that this is a really beautiful way for us to not just experience the stars and think about things, but also to bring it down to earth and to bring it into our lives and to create something that we can do rather than simply learn or listen. So if you'd like to join me live and receive the Zoom links and the companion materials that I've prepared and all of the details for August, just be sure you're on my email list. That's where I'll be sharing everything over the coming weeks. And now let's get to the meditation. So now just go ahead and find a comfortable position, a space and a place where you won't be disturbed for the next little bit of time. Close your eyes if you can, if it feels comfortable, and begin to bring your awareness here and now into your body, into this moment. If you're seated, notice that your shoulders are over your hips. If you're lying down, notice that your spine is straight. And begin to allow your body to soften. Take a slow breath in through your nose. Take a little bit more time with this breath. Deepen it. And as you exhale, gently release the breath through the mouth. Again, taking a little bit more time. Again, breathing in through the nose. Slow, deeper, easy breath. And releasing through the mouth. Maybe even taking a little bit more time on the exhale than you did on the inhale. One more time, breathing in and breathing out. And I'd like to invite you to imagine, to transport yourself in your imagination, in your mind's eye, somewhere where you can comfortably be standing outside, barefoot on the ground at night. Maybe you're in a vast open desert space. Maybe you're at the top of a mountain. But imagine that your feet are bare and that the earth is perfectly warm beneath you. And just start to gently extend roots downward through your feet, slowly entering into the soil beneath you, into the earth. Not forcing, just simply growing as roots naturally do. And as you send these roots down and out, feel yourself becoming connected to the soil beneath you, to the stones, the waters, the countless living beings beneath the surface. And just take as much time as you want. Send your roots down and out as deep and as far as you'd like. And notice that the earth receives you completely. Mother Earth knows you. You belong here. She nourishes you. And now imagine as you're standing outside barefoot beneath the vast night sky. The crown of your head is gently opening. Opening through the top of your head and opening through your third eye to begin to connect more intentionally to the stars, the moon, the endless movement of the cosmos. Without effort, and just for a few moments, allow yourself to become aware of both the earth beneath you, that you are deeply rooted, and the sky above you, the limitless energy and potential of the stars. And begin to experience yourself as the conduit, the consciousness, the energetic spark between them. And now taking another just slow breath in through your nose. As you exhale, maybe just silently receive or repeat, I am held by the earth. Receive that, feel that to be true. One more inhale here, breathe in. And receive or repeat, I am guided by the sky. And literally see if you can start to open to feel the energy being beamed down from light years away to you at this moment in time. And now imagine as you're standing out barefoot, rooted in the soil, connected to the stars. You're standing very obviously beneath the light of the full moon as well. And as you gaze up at its light, at its illumination, notice the quality of light. It's not harsh, it's not overwhelming. It is absolutely plenty bright and luminous. And it's simply steady. And as you receive the light of the moon, consider that the moon has always reflected the light of the sun. It does not create its own light. It receives, and then it reflects. And as you're lifting your gaze, notice how naturally this happens. The moon isn't striving, it's not efforting. And during this full moon, it's reminding us that wisdom often arrives the same way, that we don't need to force it, that we really are best served by simply becoming available to it. And as you're standing barefoot, lifting your gaze to the moon, lift your heart as well. Connect to the heart center, where your heart is, but right on your spine at the center of your chest. And imagine you're lifting your heart as well as your third eye to connect and receive and commune with the light of the moon. And now also imagine that beyond the moon, farther than the naked eye can see, there are three ancient presences quietly in conversation: Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus. And as we know, they've been speaking with one another for many months. They will continue to speak. That conversation is not hurried. It's unfolding over years. And these are elder planets. They understand time in a different way, potentially. They're great teachers of transformation. And begin to receive and imagine that the moon's light is almost like this beautiful filter for this moment of time and for you in this moment. As you're lifting your heart and lifting your third eye, not only is the light of the moon coming into you, but the energy of Pluto, speaking of courage, is coming through, releasing what no longer serves life, understanding the magic of transformation. Also imagine that the energy, the wisdom of Neptune is coming through, is being filtered just for you by the light of the moon and transmitted. And Neptune speaks of compassion and vision and imagination. And begin to receive the dream that is seeking to emerge. And finally, the energy of Uranus. Uranus speaks of awakening, freedom, of innovation, of the courage to embody the change that we want to seek, the courage to see differently. And just start to imagine and receive the energy of these three ancient, wise presences or consciousness. They're sitting together or they're communing together in perfect harmony. Everything's aligned. There's no static. There's nothing blocking their view or their ability to receive and send information. And so at this moment of time during this lunation, they're offering their wisdom to you together. And then just again, back to the moon. The moon is quietly, but very beautifully and perfectly in this conversation. And imagine the moon is almost like a portal or a lantern, reflecting, transmitting the wisdom of these elder planets. Not changing it, but simply making it available optimally to you. And spend a few moments here, a few breaths, just experiencing yourself standing outside, deeply rooted, receiving the transmission. Allow yourself to receive this message, the wisdom of transformation, the wisdom of vision, the wisdom of awakening. And all of this wisdom is just reflected and transmitted gently, gently but powerfully through the light of the moon. And now bring your awareness to your heart center. Imagine that as you're receiving this energy, this wisdom, this transmission, your heart light is shining a little bit brighter. Maybe it's expanding also in response and becoming more spacious, taking up more space. But also receive that this is simply not because you're trying, it's because you're listening. It's because you're present. And the same thing is happening in the space between your eyebrows, your third eye, your inner vision. Your intuition is being illuminated and upgraded without effort, simply with presence and with openness. And imagine almost a triangulation between your heart and your third eye and the moon above. Simply connecting so that the third eye and the heart can be activated, but they can also be activated to flow energy and information between each other with the moon. And as you're here receiving this energy, maybe silently or aloud, receive or repeat, may I receive the wisdom that is meant for me. May I receive the wisdom that is meant for me. May I recognize it with clarity. I recognize it with love. And again, feel your heart light onto that. May I embody it with love. And as you're here, also receive that there's nothing you need to figure out or decode or translate right now. Just simply imagine yourself standing beneath the moon, listening and receiving. And if a thought comes, you can allow it. If an image comes, you can allow it. And also, if there's just simply silence and nothing comes, allow that as well. Because sometimes wisdom arrives as silence. And now imagine that the light from the moon is not only activating and illuminating your heart and your third eye, but it's lighting up your entire field. And allow it to move through your body, maybe down to the top of your head, through your face, down your spine, into your hips and your legs, and down into your roots, back into the earth. So you are the embodiment, the spark, the transmitter of the wisdom of the sky meeting the wisdom of the earth. Receive that within you. And receive or speak the following: I receive with an open heart. Feel that. I embody with steady presence. And I walk gently between heaven and earth. And now just slowly begin bringing your awareness back to your breath. Start to become aware of the space and the place around you. Maybe notice your body once again, your hands, your feet, your heartbeat in your chest. And take one final deep breath in through the nose. And gently release that breath through the mouth and open your eyes. And as you experience this full moon and prepare for eclipse season, remember that the stars don't ask us to become someone else. They remind us of who we are becoming. Just as the earth isn't asking us to hurry, she's teaching us and reminding us how to grow at this moment of transformation in time. And may this Aquarius full moon remind you that wisdom isn't something that we possess. It's something that we enter into relationship with. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a blessed full moon, bright blessings, and so much love.